matter that we are discussing, and I request that we have our consultations in low tones. Honorable Speaker, the process that we are having today, as I said earlier, is the culmination of the budget-making process, and as far as approval of the appropriations is concerned. And Honorable Speaker, members will also be having a chance, because in the second reading, to actually make their comments and opinions and take part in this debate. But Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I want to thank all the members of this House, because all of us have taken part in the preparation of these supplementary estimates, Honorable Speaker, through our departmental committees, and also singularly as members of Parliament, because we really take note of all the opinions from our colleagues in this House, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, also I want to thank you and thank the Clerk of the National Assembly for availing to us a very good working environment, Honorable Speaker, and especially the precincts of Parliament, where we discussed the entire process, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I had said when we were doing or debating the report, I also want to thank the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and also our back office, Honorable Speaker, which is the Parliamentary Budget Office, Honorable Speaker, and especially we have been working very closely with officers like Abel, Julie, and Dan, Honorable Speaker, in the preparation of this appropriations bill. Honorable Speaker, why are we having this debate today? The reason why we are having this debate today, Honorable Speaker, number one, it is unprecedented. We have never had a supplementary budget being prepared before the main one is actually implemented. Honorable Speaker, therefore, this is the first time in the budget-making process in Kenya where we are having the supplementary estimates, Honorable Speaker, being considered barely a month after the passage of the main budget. And Honorable Speaker, this is premised on the fact that, Honorable Speaker, we were preparing a budget. The budget had two sides. There was the revenue side, but also the expenditure side. I am lucky to be handling the expenditure side. The revenue side, as we know, is handled by the Finance Committee, led by my brother, Honorable Kimani Kuria. Honorable Speaker, we passed our side as the Budget Committee, which is the expenditure, in anticipation that we were to have the entire revenue-raising measures, Honorable Speaker, realized. Unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, or fortunately so, the Kenyan people requested that we look at other means, Honorable Speaker, insofar as the management of public finances is concerned. And out of that, Honorable Speaker, then, we had a hole in the budget. All the revenue-raising measures, as were anticipated by the Finance Bureau, Honorable Speaker, therefore was left as a void. And Honorable Speaker, we have done two things to fill up that void. There are only two areas that we could explore, Honorable Speaker. One, it is in terms of expanding our deficit by borrowing slightly more. And in that regard, Honorable Speaker, in this appropriations bill, we are requesting that we borrow an extra 170 billion Kenya shillings over and above what we had budgeted in the main budget, Honorable Speaker. Consequently, our deficit, therefore, for this financial year is in excess of 750 billion. But, Honorable Speaker, to allay those fears, whereas our deficit has moved from 3.83% of deficit to GDP ratio, the current one we are considering, Honorable Speaker, of 4.3% deficit to GDP ratio, is still within our range as a country, Honorable Speaker, only that then, there before, we wanted to move out of the hole much faster because of our borrowing, and enlarging the deficit is not a very prudent manner of managing our economy. The other area, Honorable Speaker, we had to explore is the expenditure side. And consequently, therefore, over and above borrowing an extra 170 billion Kenya shillings, we have also cut expenditure to a tune of over 145 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, of what we had anticipated, Honorable Speaker, to spend. But, Honorable Speaker, it is important as this House to know that some of the things we have been doing in this house have actually been bearing fruits. So that even as we consider the proposal before us, we must know that it is not haphazard. It is usually very considered, and the more the reason we have been seeing the output in our economy. And I say so because, Honorable Speaker, last year we were in the same process. What were the results? Our economy in 2023 grew by 5.6%. Honorable Speaker, our inflation has now been tamed completely to the recent figures of 4.6%. Honorable Speaker, also, our currency seems to respond to the policies that we have been making in this house, and especially insofar as budget is concerned. And that is why our currency against the greenback has been gaining now close to 20% this year alone, Honorable Speaker, and much more in comparison to the regional currencies. Honorable Speaker, what are the other areas of consideration when we were making this supplementary budget, Honorable Speaker? One, we know that it is just out of semantics that we are calling it supplementary one. But in practice, Honorable Speaker, what we are passing today is actually the main budget. And I say so because the main one was not implemented. What will get implemented is actually what is contained in here. And I see members are already reading it. Members are already consulting on the contents in this bill, Honorable Speaker. What is the content here, Honorable Speaker? The budget we are considering is a budget of roughly 3.84 or thereabout trillion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker. 3.8 trillion, just to roughly approximate. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the revenue side, we have been able to downgrade our projections. And other than the 2.9 billion shillings we anticipated, Honorable Speaker, in the main budget, we will now be raising just above 2.6 trillion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, the A in this budget is just around 440 billion Kenya shillings. But also, Honorable Speaker, as I said before, the deficit is over 700 billion Kenya shillings. But what is on the expenditure side? On the expenditure side, Honorable Speaker, I just want to highlight a few elements. One, on the national government side, we have been able to take a hit, Honorable Speaker, of around 121 billion Kenya shillings. This is the downgrade, Honorable Speaker, in expenditure in regards to the executive, parliament, and judiciary. And Honorable Speaker, to lead that way, here in Parliament, Honorable Speaker, we voluntarily, Honorable Speaker, accepted a cut of Kenya shillings 3.7 billion, Honorable Speaker. And members of this House have told Kenyans very clearly that they are willing to travel less. They are willing to travel less domestically and also in terms of foreign. And Honorable Speaker, therefore, we have been able to rationalize those budgets in the National Assembly and in Parliament at large. Honorable Speaker, we have also been able to cut some ritual resources from the judiciary so that they also carry an equivalent burden. And I hope members are listening, Honorable Speaker, because when it comes to travel, let me repeat, the budget for travel, both foreign and domestic, has been cut across the board. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the members of this House because they have said it very categorically that they don't want to travel as much as we have been traveling because they are very cognizant of the problems that we are dealing with as an economy. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, we cut Kenya shillings 3.7 billion from Parliament. Judiciary has lost, executive has lost. But also, Honorable Speaker, the cuts have been horizontal and vertical. We have cut in all levels of government. Whereas the national government is losing 121 billion. Even our counties, Honorable Speaker, are losing 20 billion, Honorable Speaker, in equitable share. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, these are tough times, and I want to congratulate all leaders for allowing that we have a lesser budget in terms of size and everyone to take a haircut. Honorable Speaker, what are the other areas that have suffered? As we are aware, Honorable Speaker, when I was moving the main budget, there was an increment in CDF of 10 billion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank this House because members have accepted that, yes, we can postpone that dream, and therefore we live with the budget that we had the last financial year. Honorable Speaker, there was 14.5 billion Kenya shillings for rural electrification. I also want to thank the members of this House because they have already agreed that we postpone the electrification project, Honorable Speaker, where every constituency was to get 50 million Kenya shillings every constituency. Honorable Speaker, beyond that, road sector, of course, has been decimated. Road sector has lost some quite colossal amounts of money, Honorable Speaker, and many other sectors. But I also want to assure this House, ostentatious spending, Honorable Speaker, spending that is not core to service delivery, we have also cut across the board, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me not dwell too much on the cuts. Let me first go to the policy issues. There is something peculiar that we noted when we have been considering this supplementary budget. Honorable Speaker, one is that as we consider the supplementary estimates, barely a month after the passage of the main budget, we have seen a high appetite of MDAs requesting that we enhance their A&A. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, the conclusion that we have come to as the Budget Committee is that MDAs have been underestimating grossly their appropriations in aid. And Honorable Speaker, we have, in our report, recommended several things. We have seen very clearly that our country is very rich. And in that regard, two things have come up. One, Kenya as a government is overrepresented when it comes to organizations owned by government. Honorable Speaker, Kenya has got over 334 parastatos and sagas. Honorable Speaker, we have started the route of rationalizing this area, Honorable Speaker, and in this supplementary budget, Honorable Speaker, we have denied 47 of them money for operations and maintenance, Honorable Speaker, because they are either duplicating service, Honorable Speaker, or they have been overtaken by events. Honorable Speaker, as a country, this is a route you have to travel. We cannot continue having many bodies of government overlapping their services to the Kenyan people, Honorable Speaker, while we are still spending a lot of money in their recurrent expenditure. Honorable Speaker, 47 sagas, 47 government organizations have been owed up through this process, Honorable Speaker, by first denying them the budget as we, Honorable Speaker, decide what to do as a country with them. The second thing, Honorable Speaker, zooming in, and I want to request this discussion that we follow together as members. In a constituency like Suna West, in a constituency like North Hor, in a constituency like Baringo, Honorable Speaker, Baringo North, we have, for example, an engineer who represents the carer routes on the ground. In the same constituency or region, we have a Kenha office and engineers already on the ground. In the same jurisdiction, we have Kura officers, Honorable Speaker, in the same ground. We have to ask ourselves very honest questions, Honorable Speaker. Do we need a Kera engineer, on top of that, a Kenha engineer, on top of that, a Kura engineer in Ronyejes, for example, Honorable Speaker? Can these roles be done by a singular office in the regions? Honorable Speaker, that will move us toward rationalizing the recurrent expenditure so that we can free up resources to go into development. In water sector, Honorable Speaker, we have over 20 bodies in the water sector alone. Waterworks, over 10. There are other national bodies, Honorable Speaker. We have to look inwards, Honorable Speaker, and be very categorical. Do we need, as a country, to have 20 bodies dealing with water, for example, whereas each of them is having like $500 million Kenya shillings in recurrent, Honorable Speaker, doing the same job? Honorable Speaker, this is a question that in the midterm, we have to ask and critically evaluate whether we need these bodies or we need to condense them and therefore free up resources to go into the service of the Kenyan people. Honorable Speaker, I also now want to highlight some of the areas we never touched in terms of cutting their budgets or rationalizing. Honorable Speaker, I want to laud the corrective wisdom of this House. And Honorable Speaker, I request that the members get this very clearly. Whereas we have been cutting the budget to fit into the shoe properly, Honorable Speaker, there are some areas we as a House have said no to their cuts because we think they are critical to the Kenyan people who we represent. One of them, Honorable Speaker, the monies that had been allocated for the confirmation of the JSS interns, 18.7 billion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, we did not approve any cut. The money is going appropriated so that we confirm our JSS interns, all the 46,000 of them, into permanent and pensionable terms. The second thing, Honorable Speaker, there are interns in our health sector. And Honorable Speaker, the interns in our health sector, we have also allocated Kenya shillings, 3.7 billion Kenya shillings, for them to be confirmed into permanent and pensionable terms because they deserve that, Honorable Speaker. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, our economy is agrarian. Our economy is agricultural based. This is not a very good story, Honorable Speaker, because in economics, one of the areas to measure whether an economy is growing is when an economy has less and less of agriculture in the composition of GDP. In fact, one of the definitions of economic development, Honorable Speaker, because there is economic growth, there is economic development. In economic growth, those are the jargons we term as GDP and the rest, and GNP and the rest. But in the economic development side, Honorable Speaker, we define the economy both quantitatively and qualitatively. And one of the qualitative measures of whether an economy is a developed economy, it is an economy that has less than 10% of agriculture in the composition of GDP. Fortunately or unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, in Kenya, agriculture still accounts for over 18% of our GDP. And agriculture here, I mean the primary part of our production, Honorable Speaker, which is agriculture, forestry, mining, and fisheries. Honorable Speaker, but that is where we are now, and we need to do something on it, because 70% of our rural population are engaged in agriculture. And in that respect, Honorable Speaker, we have allocated Kenya shillings 7.5 billion into fertilizer subsidy. And the fertilizer subsidy, Honorable Speaker, will be for food crops and cash crops, Honorable Speaker. Coffee farmers can access that fertilizer. Maize farmers can access that fertilizer. Cotton farmers can access that fertilizer. There is no discrimination in regards to the kind of crop that our farmers are growing. Honorable Speaker, the second thing in regards to agriculture, we have allocated Kenya shillings, 3 billion shillings, into the coffee cherry revolving fund, Honorable Speaker. That money will go into easing the cost of borrowing when it comes to coffee societies and also coffee farmers. The other thing in regards to coffee, Honorable Speaker, coffee farmers, the recently tabulated debts are around 8.6 billion Kenya shillings that coffee societies owe to the banks. Honorable Speaker, so that we can continue to help our farmers in these debt menace, we have allocated the first phase, Kenya shillings 2 billion, Honorable Speaker, into the payment of coffee debts so that our farmers, Honorable Speaker, can get reprieve when it comes to the debts, Honorable Speaker. In the sugar sector, we have allocated around 700 million to 1 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker. One, to enhance in terms of payments of arrears of farmers, but also number two, Honorable Speaker, to increase the sucrose level, to increase the technology in the sugar sector. And I want to laud Honorable Motonga, Honorable Speaker, who is the chair for agriculture, because he has actually looked inwards into AFA to get resources to support our sugar farmers because they also deserve more. One, in terms of payments, but also number two, in terms of technology, so that we can enhance the payments of sugar cane, not just in terms of weight, but also in terms of sucrose level, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the other thing we have done in the arena of agriculture is that we have allocated to new KCC Kenya shillings 1.5 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, money that will go into defending the raw milk prices so that our farmers can get a net of 50 shillings per litre, Honorable Speaker, for raw milk so that dairy farming can continue to be a profitable venture for our farmers, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have done much more in that arena. We have done much more in that arena, Honorable Speaker, because we believe agriculture is important for our economy. Honorable Speaker, when it comes to our security sector, the Maraga Task Force was given a mandate to go around the country, Honorable Speaker, to check how our security officers are living. But before I go to that, Honorable Speaker, before I go to that, let me just finish with agriculture first. I was to highlight one more critical issue. In the dairy sector, the Kenyan government has been having a program with the Polish government where the GOK was to raise 5% of the funds and the Poland government was to give us the remainder so that we purchase coolers for our farmers. Honorable Speaker, out of the changes in governance in Poland, this has become a very long process for us to access the other funds on the other side. What we have done as government, what we have done as this House of Parliament, Honorable Speaker, is to allocate Kenya shillings 2 billion for outright purchase of coolers, Honorable Speaker, to be given to our farmers so that, Honorable Speaker, dairy farming can continue to be mechanized and enhanced. Going back to security, and I want to thank Honorable Tongoyo because he's very passionate about the sector. The Maraga Task Force, Honorable Speaker, went around the country and they reported to us the obvious, the truth that you all know, that our police officers are not remunerated enough, that our police officers live in standards that are subhuman. And Honorable Speaker, for us to move to the direction of ameliorating the matter, Honorable Speaker, we have done an increment. This House has done an increment of 3.5 billion Kenya shillings to the National Police Service Commission for the increase of salaries to our police officers, Honorable Speaker, who are our brothers and sisters, because, Honorable Speaker, they don't have a union to talk for them, and therefore I want to laud this House and the government for fitting in there and adding salaries to our police officers because they deserve it, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I come to the conclusion, this bill has got many things, and those many things affect the people who have put us in the positions of service, Honorable Speaker. I request the members of this House, the kinds of solidarity we always have, the input you always give us as the Budget Committee, of enriching the process. I want to request you that it is always welcome because it shapes the way we allocate resources. I want to thank all the members, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank all the committees and especially the chairs of departmental committees because they have been able to assist us in working around the clock to deliver this document, Honorable Speaker, and in a timely manner. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I also, first of all, before I move, because I've seen many things in the media, I have seen issues around the education sector. The truth of the matter is that education sector is receiving the highest budget, is receiving the lion's share of our budget, Honorable Speaker. I have also seen issues around governance. Honorable Speaker, I request that members would go through the bill so that we can distinguish what we are seeing out there and what is the reality, because the reality is much better. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I also want to assure Kenyans.
Order, Ndindi. There's a point of information from GK. Do you want it?
Yes, GK is my neighbor. I can always benefit from him.
Go ahead, GK.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Indeed, the member for Keharo is my neighbor and my good friend. And I know he has mentioned something to do with the road agencies, Kerakura, Kenha, and KRB. And I will request that he allows me to give a competing perspective on his views. Because, Honorable Speaker, some years back, many years back, we used to have a ministry called Ministry for Roads and Public Works. It was a humongous ministry, and it never used to serve the public the right way. Never used to deliver services to Mwananchi. Honorable Speaker, we are living in days when management of public resources and affairs are done through what we call public management as opposed to public administration. And in public management, Honorable Speaker, we have what we call disaggregation of units. And in disaggregation of units, Honorable Speaker, that is where you reduce the scope, you reduce the size, so that you're able to deliver services the right way. If we ramp again those agencies, we'll be taking many steps backwards. So, Honorable Speaker, I beg to inform the member that having these agencies broken down into smaller units makes it much easier to deliver public goods and services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable GK, and I take note of that. It's just a discussion I'm putting into our minds, not in terms of abolishing the agencies, but whether we need all of them. But I agree with you, and it's a debate that we are fronting on the table so that we look for the best alternative for our country. Honorable Speaker, as I come to the conclusion, I also want to assure the members that the monies for equalization fund, the 8 billion shillings, is still intact, so that the Kenyan areas which have been left behind, Honorable Speaker, can also catch up when it comes to development, Honorable Speaker, because when all the sides of Kenya develop, then Kenya wholesomely develops. And Honorable Speaker, as we know, all Kenyans live everywhere. And therefore, it is our responsibility to make sure Kenya grows across all areas, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to allay the fears about the school feeding program. The Kenya shillings 3 billion for the school feeding program is still intact, and it will be managed by the infrastructure in the Ministry of Education. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, the school feeding program, I want to assure members, is still there in the budget, 3 billion shillings, and it is under the Ministry of Education because they have the right infrastructure to administer those resources. We have also allocated monies for the to operationalize the funds created by the new SHIF, Honorable Speaker, all the 3 funds. We have input around 8 to 10 billion shillings so that these funds can be operational and serve in the purpose of deliver universal health coverage to all Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to move and request the very able Vice Chairperson of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, the Iron Lady, Madam Mary Amase, to second this motion.
Mary Amase, the Iron Lady. I didn't know that was your other name.